Well, welcome everybody to a special edition of our Cafe Bettor Sport. And with me is, well, I really ought to be saying he should be my hero because he certainly, when I was taking very baby steps in the beginning of Clocking the Gallop, this man, Brent, was advising me many evenings when I was saying, what button do I press? So we've kind of got it sorted out. But Brent, a great to be chatting to you. We've had a lot of shared water under bridges over the years on various different shows, including the Pride Cup, which was lots of fun, I must say. But welcome. And I brought you on because, as I told you, and I'm about to tell the audience, I have absolutely no idea about the Tour this year. So as soon as I thought Tour de France, I thought Brent Graham. Welcome.
Excellent, Neil. Good to be with you. Yeah, we've been through a few Tour de France's together in our time as well. I remember once, I think at the Betting World studio, we even had an exercise bike in there. At some point, something like that. But yeah, I'm very excited. But I can't wait for the Tour to begin, Neil. You know, it looked like we weren't going to have a Tour de France this year with COVID-19. I mean, the Tour de France, the opening stage normally always coincides with the Durban July. First Saturday of July, you got the Tour de France starting and you got the July, and it's a great day always for me. And this year, of course, the July was 3 weeks later. And the Tour de France, yeah, even now, this is being called the Tour de France, and people are saying, will it reach Paris? Because there's obviously still a lot of COVID around in France, and the teams are going around in their bubbles, but they're getting all sorts of what you call, like, a guy will test positive one day and negative the next for COVID-19. And there's a big worry, and from a punting point of view, a massive worry that you could back the guy, he could be cruising to victory and test positive, and he's gone. Absolutely gone.
Yeah, as if punters' lives weren't. I mean, next thing we'll be having a racehorse winning the Gold Cup with COVID, and then we can't get settled there. I mean,
that's it. I mean, but cycling, Neil, is traditionally for me. I mean, I love betting on cycling, but I bet a lot smaller on cycling than I do on, for example, rugby. But I get a lot more joy out of betting on cycling. It's just, you know, you can sit there and you don't have to have a lot of money on. You can either get a big price, or even if you've got a small bet on a fairly short price, just the excitement of watching it. But I must tell you that, yeah, over the years I've learned the hard way. Don't put big money down on cycling, because it could be a mechanical, it can be a drug test, whether COVID or some other type of drug. It can even be things like team tactics, where you can't understand it. Your man's in the break and you got him at 50-1, and his team call him back to help the leader 3 kilometers back down the road. I mean, you know, you just can't call these things. But honestly, I would advise anyone who either enjoys their cycling and doesn't know about betting to get into it, or enjoys their betting and doesn't know cycling yet. I would definitely advise them to get into it.
Well, here's something interesting, because you know me as a hardened punter. I think I might have had a few ran on some cyclists over the years, but I always watched the Tour de France purely because of the visual enjoyment of it. And the commentary. I enjoyed the commentary with Phil Liggett and his team. But, you know, visually, late at night when you come in, if you want to grab something to eat and drink and sit down in front of your TV on your sofa, it's just beautiful. The coverage is fantastic. I find it quite relaxing, actually, just to watch it, and the team tactics and the characters. So I've been watching a lot of cycling, but never really punted on it until this year, until you helped me out with those that won't get COVID.
Yeah, we'll see about that. But you're quite right. The scenery is magnificent. The commentary is great. I mean, you know, you've got 21 stages. Not all of them are designed for TV, if I can put it that way, in the sense that the sprint stages, quite often you just want to really tune in for the last, 20 kilometers or something like that. But some of the mountain stages, you really want to be there from the start. And if it's like it normally is, the last few years we've had full coverage from the start of the stage and that. So you can also sit there. If it is a slow stage, you can doze on the couch a little bit, wake up. And of course, there's in-running betting as well, Neil. So you can, if you're not sure, then you wait and see who gets in the break, and you can make a decision from there. You know, do I back the person in the break, or are they going to get caught?
Okay, I didn't know that. So, as I said, I don't know where we are this year. I'm going to tell our viewers in a moment some of the basics that I know, and that is that it starts tomorrow at 2 p.m., and Brent's going to help us. Are we in the Alps this year? Are we going up the Pyrenees? Where are we doing Alpe d'Huez?
We're not doing Alpe d'Huez this year. In fact, it's a very different route to normal, but I would say one of the most exciting Tour de France routes I've seen. It really is set up for some attacking riding. So you go in the Alps and the Pyrenees, and there's also, I think they call it the Massif Central. There's other smaller mountain ranges and that they go through as well. So plenty of good hard climbs and plenty of, as I say, stages. Quite often a big climb doesn't necessarily make a stage that exciting. It becomes a war of attrition. And I think what the organizers have done this year, they've set stages that, if I could say, could be used for things like ambushes, where one team, because cycling is very much a team sport. I mean, you could be the best cyclist in the world. If you don't have a team around you, you're not going to win the Tour de France. Having said that, you are not going to win the Tour de France unless you're one of the best in the world, because a team can't carry you up a mountain. But there are tactical times when you are under attack from 3 or 4 guys. You need your teammates marking those guys, or you need them to be able to do the work in the flat to keep the gaps down. So that's the thing about cycling. It's absolutely fascinating. And the more you understand it, the more you get addicted to it.
So it sounded like you were describing Messi in Barcelona there for a moment when you said the best player in the world, if he's not surrounded by anybody, he's not going to win much. So tomorrow at 2 p.m., and the betting is interesting. You're going to have to take me through some of the betting, because I told you already that the favourite, the race favourite, the Tour de France favourite, I'm not familiar with at all. Second favourite I'm very familiar with, and a couple of other names. But cycling changes quite quickly. So for those who might have been sitting on the sidelines over the last year or so, such as myself, what can you help us with, Brent? Give us a bit of information.
Well, the first thing is, if you've been sitting on the sidelines for a while and you haven't followed cycling, you're probably going to open the betting and look for Chris Froome. And Froome's not even in the race. So Chris Froome got badly injured last year before the Tour de France, and his plans were to come back this year, and they were going to have a 3-pronged attack. Him and Geraint Thomas, the 2018 Tour winner, were going to be there. And neither of them have made the Ineos, which used to be Team Sky as well. But the Ineos Grenadiers, neither Froome nor Thomas are in that squad. So there's a lot of different names up there. And if you want, I can share some betting with you. Let's just have a look here. Oh, sorry, I haven't. Hopefully I can find it. Here we go. Okay, there we go. So here we got, okay, that's the stage 1 betting. I'm just going to go down. So here we got the general classification. So we got at the top of the betting boards. It's interesting. There's 2 guys disputing favoritism. Egan Bernal, who this week has replaced Primož Roglic as the favorite at 2-1. Okay. But some bookmakers still have it the other way around. So they're basically betting very much a 2-horse race here, Neil. You've got 2 very strong teams. You've got Egan Bernal's Ineos team, and you've got Primož Roglic, who's got an incredibly strong team. They've really, Jumbo-Visma, they are going to be, they're probably the strongest team in the race. And if you look at the betting, in fact, you see Tom Dumoulin, who's actually a teammate of Primož Roglic. And you've got Richard Carapaz, who was one of the guys who came in when Froome and Thomas didn't make it. He's an Ineos teammate. So you've got a situation where you've got some teams you've got 2 teams that dominate the betting there. And what that means is there's all sorts of dynamics in the Tour de France. I don't know if you can remember a few years ago when Bradley Wiggins won, but Chris Froome was notably stronger than Wiggins in the mountains. But he wasn't allowed to attack his teammate. He had to ride for the team. And that's where there's some interesting dynamics, because Primož Roglic, and he had an accident in the warm-up race, the Dauphiné, and there's talk that he's not 100% yet, and that's why he's drifted a little bit in the betting. But if you get a guy like his teammate Dumoulin, it's probably secretly hoping that he's not 100%, because then he starts better and he becomes the team captain. So there's a tremendous amount of dynamics. France haven't won this race since, I think, the early 80s or the late 80s. I mean, it's been a long time since we've had a French winner of the Tour de France. And Thibaut Pinot, who came very close to winning last year before he had an unfortunate injury, lots of money for him. He's 6-1, but I wouldn't back him with your money personally, Neil. I don't think he's got the temperament to win the Tour de France. I think he's a popular, sentimental choice, but I prefer the chances. If I scroll down here, it's Tadej, I hope I get his name right, Pogacar. He is a youngster. He burst onto the scene last year. He rode incredibly well in the Volta a España, which is also a 3-week tour, and he just rides. He's got tremendous maturity. He lost the 3 weeks of a Grand Tour, which is also a problem some riders have. You get some guys who can be strong for a week, but not for 3 weeks. And he's proven that he could last. And he's my dark horse for the title at 14-1. I'm going to say this up front. Given the situation this year with COVID and that, this is not the sort of event that you want to stick your house on a long-term bet. And that is very much the way I can tell you most punters are going. They're focusing on the stages with a bit of an interest in the long term. And we'll see. Obviously, there's updated betting after each stage. But if I want to give you something up front, I'll give you him at 14-1 a win and 5-2 a podium.
What team does he belong to, Pogacar?
He is the UAE team, United Arab Emirates team.
Has he got has he got a domestique to look after him?
He does. He's got a decent team. His team are not in the league of Ineos and Jumbo-Visma, but the beauty about this race is, in the past, what we've had one incredibly strong team in Team Sky, and it's actually become quite boring. They just tap out tempo, and anybody who tries to do anything, they'll put it right. But now we've got two teams, and I think what you're going to have is these two teams are almost like a bit of a battle against each other, and I think that's going to leave openings for the likes of Pogacar just to ride slowly at the beginning, and not slowly, but in other words, hidden in the peloton, not show himself too much. But there's going to be an opportunity where he's going to attack. And you might find a situation where the two big teams look at each other and go, you chase him, and you chase him. But before you know it, he's gone. But yes, he's got a decent team, but it's not as strong as the top two teams.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that happen before, as you say, that no one wants to chase or sacrifice, and somebody, certainly in stage wins, takes full advantage of that. So Pogacar could be a man later on to win a stage, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely stage betting. And in fact, a lot of the book, you can get prices on guys winning stages and not winning a stage for that matter. And yeah, winning a stage of the Tour de France is a big deal. So a lot will depend on how the race pans out. You get guys, and I'll just scan a little bit further down here, but you get guys like Julian Alaphilippe, who you might remember, if you did follow it all last year, it was in the yellow jersey for some time. I'm just trying to find there's the arrow button there. So this route doesn't suit him, in my opinion. And even last year, I was quite convinced he wouldn't make it to the end, which he didn't.
I remember
that was
a big punt, wasn't it? Because
that's it.
We were still on the show, and you were saying that you'd laid him till the cows come home.
I was nipping myself, because then there all sorts of weather problems intervened, and it looked like the race might be shortened. And I thought he was going to win it by default, and I was going to actually pop myself off right there in studio. But if you look at a guy like Adam Yates, Yates is a guy who could be a podium contender, but he's 100 to 1. And the reason is that he's coming in here, he's saying, I'm actually not interested in going for the outright. I want stages. And what you'll find a guy like Yates will do, at some point in the first week, he'll lose 15 minutes. And he'll do it on purpose. And the reason is that when he attacks the next day, the guys aren't going to worry about him because he's no threat to the yellow jersey. And then he increases his odds of winning a stage. So you're going to find guys who know in the betting who are going to win a stage, and you're going to find other guys in the top 5 in the betting who are not going to win a stage. And that's cycling for you. I
wouldn't touch this guy Sepkus. He must be a half-brother to Septic. I mean, what an odd man that is, Sepkus. I mean, if he doesn't win, he'll be cussing his way all the way back to the van. But there's some familiar...
So he's actually, interestingly enough, he's a teammate of... He's in that powerful Jumbo-Visma team. So he's what they call a super domestique. So he's going to be, you'll see him in the mountain stages, but he's very unlikely to win a stage. And 50 to 1, no, you've got to be crazy to back him, quite frankly.
So tomorrow we start at 2:00, and the first stage is in Nice. They start in Nice, and I assume they race around Nice and end up in Nice for stage 1 at 2:00. So on the principle that we should start off with trying to back a stage winner, there it is, Brent showing it to us, 156 kilometers, starts in Nice.
There's your profile.
Okay, so there's a couple of, those aren't particular mountains, are they, or are they?
Yeah, not bad. Certainly by South African standards, they'd be pretty odd. The Tour de France, I love the way these blooming Google adverts pop up all over the place.
Yeah.
Certainly Tour de France standards, the first stage used to always be a prologue, like a very short time trial. But of late, it's been a sprint stage, but normally it's pan flat. And this is actually, by Tour de France standards, a very difficult start. And I must tell you, Sunday is an incredibly difficult stage for a second stage. There's 2 Category 1 climbs. If you look here, this climb, it's 5.8 kilometers at 5%. If they ride hard on that climb, the sprinters are going to be struggling to hang on. But what you got here is about 40 kilometers of downhill/flat towards the end. And you'll find that even if the favorites, and you'll see Sam Bennett, the Irishman, is the one favorite, and Caleb Ewan is the other one from Australia, if they do get dropped, their teammates will probably bring them back. And more than likely tomorrow we're going to get a bunch finish, because this Tour de France doesn't have many obvious sprint stages. So the sprinters' teams are not going to let this chance slip away. I think this one's going to come down to a bunch finish.
Okay, right. And then we go for the sprinters. As we used to back in the day with Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov. These days I've still... Yes, I've still got Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov, but I take pills for it these days and the swelling's gone down.
I was going to say that brings back some memories.
It does. It was great. So brilliant. So okay. So that's the start of the stage. We've got everything is up in the air, as you say. So you've given us some fair warning. Maybe, I mean, you can have a speculative long-term bet, but I think stick with the stages and try and find yourself some value in the stages as we go along, Brent.
That's it. Yeah, and I'll bring up. I'm just going to go to World Sports Betting. This is the betting for the stage tomorrow. 2-1 Caleb Ewan, 5-2 Sam Bennett. There's been a bit of betting movement there, but just for punters who do, and I know a lot of your punters will have World Sports Betting accounts because they're big involved with horse racing as well. They've got a nice special on the Tour de France, and essentially what it is if on any of the 21 stages, if you back the winner and he runs second, you can get your stake back in free bets. Obviously, you know the story with free bets. There's always a few, you got to roll it over, but the point is, it's a great one, especially when you look at this. It's not quite a two-horse race, but it's priced pretty close to a two-horse race by cycling standards. So if you take Ewan at 2-1, you have a nice bet on him. And then, if he gets beaten into second, you can have a go the next day because you get your money back as a free bet. And just one other thing to show you as far as the betting goes, the matchups. You actually can back two riders against each other on the stage or, for that matter, over the 3 weeks. So this is stage betting for tomorrow. So you'll see here Peter Sagan and the recently crowned European champion Nizzolo. They're 5-6 the pair tomorrow. And you could, for example, take 3 or 4 of those and stick them into an accumulator. So you can really ensure that you've got a big interest in the stage.
There's Daryl Impey. I see Daryl Impey down there.
Impey against Jasper de Beest. And he's the underdog tomorrow, 12-10. And one of the reasons, look, I don't actually know the guy that he's riding against here. But one of the things for Impey is that Impey will be I think Impey will potentially be working for someone else on the stage, quite often to set up. So, but Impey, there were some guys talking about Impey. You know the green jersey, which Peter Sagan has made his own, and he's pretty short for the green jersey. I think I saw somewhere around the points classification, he's around 11 to 20. And Impey, some people were saying, what about Impey? Because Impey's a strong rider. He can make it over some of the smaller climbs, and he's a decent sprinter. And I think Impey is about 200 to 1 for the green jersey. But to be fair, he is a long shot. But
Peter Sagan's almost as old as Carl Sagan, spelled the same way. I remember he wrote that book Cosmos. I mean, Peter Sagan's been around he must have been around for close to a decade.
Yeah, I would probably put him at about 33 or so, 32, 33. He's been around for a long time, but he's been so dominant. And I mean, at certain points, definitely the best rider in the world. He's never going to win a Tour de France because he's too heavy. He's not a climber. But Daryl Impey, here we go. He's 300 to 1. You can get 80 to 1 on him for a top 3.
Sure.
But I'll just mention in this green jersey race, it's another situation where tactics play a part because this guy here, Wout van Aert, he's 7 to 1 for the green jersey. Now, he's at the moment the hottest guy in world cycling. He's won a couple of one-day races. He can climb. If he was focused on the green jersey, I would actually have him at probably 11 to 20 or 6 to 10. But he's here to ride for his team leaders, and he's not focusing on it. So, lots of dynamics. But if the team leader crashes on the first stage, all of a sudden he's riding for the green jersey. You just never know in cycling.
Yeah, he might not be a bad place 5 to 4 for a podium finish then.
Possibly, yeah. It's one of those things, it just depends if he's going to get given any rein by his team to actually try. Because the way the green jersey works, it's not only points at the end, but there's what they call intermediate sprints out on the course. And, if you want to stay in contention, you should be challenging for those. And his team, Director Sportif, will probably say, no, we're saving your energy, buddy. You're not sprinting for those.
Well, I'm going to have a banner made. It's going to say Vote Van Aert. That's what I'm going to say.
That's
Vote Van Aert. Or Van Aert, or whatever his name is. Okay,
so I'll give you a little quick roughie deal in the green jersey race.
Close. And what I'll do, if it's okay with you, I'll pick your brains next week, see how you've gone and see how the tour is developing, because some punters might like all of these individual bets, or you can let us know if you've got anything on good for the game, and we'll just tell our viewers to go out and watch your show.
Yeah, excellent. I'll actually be previewing each stage. It's going to be a very short preview, probably 4 to 6 minutes, running through the profile. It'll be the morning of the stage. It'll go on the Good for the Game YouTube. But yeah, that's a good idea. Let's catch up in a week's time and see how things are going.
Yeah,
but Matteo Trentin at 11 to 1 for a podium in the green jersey. I've just got a feeling that this route is going to suit the the harder type sprinters. He's not particularly fast, but he can get over the mountains. And that's my speculative play, 11-1 podium, Matteo Trentin.
Okay, well, Brent, you've been a huge help because, as I say, I'm going to watch a lot of it. And when I'm watching, of course, we can we'll have a bet because it adds to the fun.
Definitely.
It definitely does, and it's going to be wonderful stuff with coverage pretty much wall to wall as always. And let's hope that things run smoothly. But as you say, with France, with the reoccurrence of some COVID, they've got to be careful. And obviously, health and safety and life comes first, right?
No, that's it. That's for sure. And look, I must say they are taking every precaution. I mean, it's going to be a very different Tour de France, even from a crowd's point of view. You're not going to see those throngs of people up the mountain. You know, there are going to be people, but it's going to be much more controlled. And I believe the teams in that themselves, I mean, obviously they're paranoid. So they are in bubbles. So literally, like, they won't actually, probably 4 or 5 people will mingle with each other the whole tour. And you can't get close to these guys. And it's, you know, and rightly so, because it'll be a disaster if the tour gets stopped after 10 days or something. It'll be an absolute disaster for me especially.
Well, was it last year where they had that huge drama with the
landslide?
Yeah, the landslide. I mean, that was incredible. I was watching that day, and eventually it was all cancelled. But what a story that was!
Yeah, that was big, and that was actually. Now, Alaphilippe was sort of hanging on to the lead last year there, and there was a massive mountain to come off that landslide, and you could see he was cooked, he was gone. And next thing you know, the stage gets cancelled. Thankfully, they took the times at the top of the previous time, and he lost a bit. But, I mean, it's those type of things, and that, as I say, that's what makes cycling betting beautiful, but it makes it dangerous. And that's why my advice to you is have fun, have a bet on the cycling, but don't see this as your get out of jail and your early retirement.
Brent Graham, that was very entertaining. More importantly, it was very informative. And I'm sure folks who are watching this for the first time probably didn't realize the complications and the excitement there is and knowledge behind Tour de France and indeed cycling. So I want to thank Brent for sharing that because, as I told him before we came on, I know absolutely nothing about this year's Tour, but now you do, thanks to Brent Graham and his team from Good for the Game. Brent, we'll chat to you soon, and thanks very much.
Excellent, Neil. Great chatting to you.